crown a champion, a champion. It's just me, I still on it, 'cause you all wanna be loved. Yeah, you all wanna be loved.
Hey, and welcome back to the Crimson Dynasty. My name is Sishi, and I'm your host. Now, I know a lot of you have been here before. Y'all are familiar with the Bama Standard. So the Crimson Dynasty is essentially the sister channel of the Bama Standard. We're not a full year in yet, but it doesn't matter because we've talked about everything here, like the good, the bad, the ugly. So we definitely plan to have a lot to talk about tonight, and there's a lot to discuss. So hopefully we have enough time to hit all our points. But I definitely want to welcome everyone who's new here. Thank you for joining us tonight. And also welcome back to those who have been here before. We appreciate your support. And we definitely want you to hit that like button while you're here. Hey, you're on your phone, your laptop, your tablet anyway. You might as well hit the like button. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any content. We're always dropping recruiting news, just anything. It may be, Steven going on his rants or just different members where we're just dropping some gems and some knowledge. And also hit that notification bell so you never miss any hot content. So like I mentioned, my name is Sishi. I'm your host here. I definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsor before we get started, though, Workspace Solutions. So we have their website listed below. Now, if you have a business and you're in need of a digital presence or even a full-fledged marketing team at an affordable price, you can reach out to them directly. We would actually recommend that you go to their website, check out their products, and if you have any questions, reach out to them specifically and be sure to let them know that we sent you there. So without further ado, I want you all to light up that live chat. We always enjoy it. Now, Dan, he likes to keep his eyes on that live chat, and Hannah as well. And they don't mind trolling some of these haters. So y'all just be careful what y'all put in there tonight. But be sure to show some love. So I definitely want to get things started first with welcoming our co-host tonight. So we do have Dan James IV. Now, he's not a new face. Y'all are familiar with him. Anyone who's been here on the Bama Standard Network before, you've seen him before every Tuesday night on The Final Whistle. He's the lead recruiting analyst. He's the go-to guy when you want to know anything about a current player, a coming player, a former player. He's always the guy to go to. So I want to welcome you, Dan. How are you doing tonight? How are you feeling? You got smiles on your face. I feel like you're feeling good, but I don't know.
Hey, it's hump day. You know what I'm saying? Another action-packed live show. You know what I'm saying? I'm loving it. Roll Tide, everyone.
Roll Tide, roll.
Hit that like and subscribe button.
And I also have to introduce our other co-host, Hannah Stevens. Now, she's been awesome to have on the show. We've seen really good positive feedback regarding Hannah because she really knows what she's talking about, and it's not even just football. It's rowing, basketball, soccer, swimming, anything that you could think of, golf, like she'll know it. And I think a part of it has to do with the fact that she's a former athlete from Alabama. She was on our rowing team, but then also, she has contacts and friends who play other sports as well. She has a sports broadcasting degree from Alabama. She has a radio show on ESPN Radio in Huntsville, Alabama. She has some sports podcasts. And so she releases a couple of them per month. So she's been doing amazing things. And we're so happy to have you back. We know you were kind of under the weather last week, and some people were asking about you, so it's so good to have you back. And how are you feeling today? Are you feeling better?
Much better. I was from before the show. I don't know if it was the flu or COVID, but I also am a firefighter EMT, so I run a lot of our medical calls. So when you go into a home that you're helping someone, you never know what you're going to get, so it's just part of it. But anyway, I'm much better. I can actually talk. Last week, I had a horrible headache, did not feel good, like body aches, everything. So glad to be here. So glad that it's beautiful outside. And I love the later sunset. So the fact that we get more light later in the day, I love it. I'm very happy.
Yeah, same here. And I like to wake up pretty early anyway. And so when it's still dark outside, you're kind of like, okay, should I just sleep in a few more minutes? But I like to get up early because it feels like when you get up earlier, you have like a longer day to do what you need to do. So I don't know. I enjoy it too. But like I said, we have some hot topics tonight. If y'all haven't hit the like button already, then I don't know what you're doing. You might want to go ahead and do it now because y'all are definitely going to be, entertained more than anything tonight. So the first thing that I want to mention, we mentioned last week during the show, but I wanted to kind of expand on it because there's been more development. So Coach Saban. Now, we mentioned last week that Coach Saban, he has some things to say about what really pushed him to retirement. And I think for a lot of us, we may have already assumed like the NIL, the transfer portal, and just some of the guys kind of being prima donnas in a sense, and kind of asking to, like reassurance that they're going to start or reassurance about, money and things like that. Well, there's been new developments, and I'm going to let Hannah take this one off because she's been really following this, and it sounds like there's been even more developments. So Hannah, can you fill us in on what's been going on?
Sure. Yeah. So if y'all are not aware, Saban was at Capitol Hill yesterday. And, Capitol Hill is a place where, you can get they have a lot of plethora of topics they talk about, obviously, but this one had to do with college football, NIL, paying players. And Ted Cruz asked Nick Saban, was what's happening now? Was that a part of why you left Alabama? Is that a part of the reason why you retired? And to answer it simply, he said, yes, it wasn't the only reason, but it was a big reason. And he actually brought Terry Saban into the conversation. He shared that, on Sundays, they have the players and some of the parents over for brunch, breakfast, whatever you want to call it. And that it was a great time for Terry to, pour into the moms and say, hey, while your son's at Bama, I'm going to make sure he's on track. I'm going to pour into him like he's a son. And she said, or Saban said that, right before he retired, Terry asked Saban, why are we still doing this? And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, why are we doing this? The players don't care anymore about being built up. They don't care anymore about, the impact you have on their lives and going into the next level. They want money. They want to be paid. And so, he made it clear that the NIL in and of itself is not a bad thing. But he also, I like to think he heard me on this show, our show, and said, this is what was the dagger. But he said it's the lack of structure. It's not having parameters for these players that's really hurt college football. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think Nick Saban is going to be the first of many coaches we see the next couple of seasons either retire or move on. Because, you look at this, and for Nick Saban, one of the reasons he did not leave Alabama in his tenure, many years at Alabama, was because the control, was because of the structure and the discipline and all of these things he had laid out at Alabama that never changed. And now you bring in this new set of obsessions, so to speak, with players getting money or being able to transferring to Texas because they get a Lamborghini, but now it's affecting college football, and it's going to be harder for the coaches to have the old school mindset of, we have these players for 3 years. Let's build them up on and off the field. We'll ship them off to the NFL, and then Lord willing, they do well and they succeed. So for me, I'm passionate about this because I think Nick Saban is kind of being the spokesperson for what a lot of these coaches are scared to say because of the recruits they have on their team now. Saban has nothing to lose now. He has more to gain, nothing to lose. And I'll say this, Deion Sanders spoke on social media. He said basically what Nick Saban said, and Kirby Smart came to Nick Saban's defense today as well when he was asked a similar question, saying, yeah, like, this is an issue. It's ruining college football, and I'm excited to see. But I think you're going to see Nick Saban transition from what we see as a coach to being kind of a college football advocate for helping the purity of the game still go on. Right. Sorry, that was very long-winded, but
No, but that was good because I feel like our viewers need to get that context because, there's a lot of misconception. And of course, because there wasn't an official statement per se that was released, when Coach Saban retired, there was, a lot of speculation. And I want to ask you, Dan, kind of piggybacking off of what Hannah said. And along with that, I heard Chad Johnson on, I think with Shannon Sharp, and they were talking about Coach Saban's remarks maybe just a few days ago. And Chad was basically saying that, I guess he had the sentiment or the belief that a part of the reason why Coach Saban did retire is not necessarily just because of the NIL and the transfer portal, but more so because the NIL is basically leveling the playing field, if you will. And so almost like, okay, well, if you can't handle the pressure, Coach Saban, then you're just kind of running with your tail between your legs. And I didn't really like that because I feel like with a coach like Coach Saban, he's the greatest of all time, hands down. So he doesn't have to run, but when you look at things from a systemic perspective and you look at it from a bird's eye view, that's when you can really see what's going on. And so I don't know. I feel like it's kind of being misconstrued, but I want to get your opinion on this, Dan. How do you feel about what Coach Saban said at Capitol Hill and then kind of like some of the reactions in the sports world with Chad Johnson?
Yes, I think people tend to miss the point that, the part where Coach Saban, he's all for players making money. It's just the issue with there's no constraints on, the NIL issue. How are we governing it? There's no rules in place. So the system is broken. I don't, I believe it's going to eventually ruin football. We don't know that yet. We're all in new territory. But I believe it's the end of amateurism as we know it. So what next? High school? We start paying high school kids.
Well, now
they
that
start
you
making
say
money,
that,
enough money. What's the purpose of going to the NFL?
These kids are gonna start getting paid Pee-wee football.
No, seriously, because I remember reading an article last year saying that there were some schools in Georgia that was allowing their players, so high school level. So even in that regard, that kind of ties into what you just said, Dan. It's like, at what point are there going to actually be restrictions? Because it's really going to be a trickle down effect. Then you're going to see it affect the NFL, where you have certain guys who maybe in college they were able to make however much, but then they go to the NFL, they're sitting on the bench, whatever the case may be, they get injured, and then they kind of, it's almost like that love for the game goes away in that aspect, because you've already kind of made a certain amount of money beforehand. So I definitely think that it's something that we really need to keep our eyes on. Kind of like what you were saying too, Hannah, that Coach Saban, he's kind of like opening that door, that Pandora's box, if you will. And there are going to be other coaches that are going to come, and especially the ones who almost feel like maybe they've been considering retirement here and there, or they've been considering different things. And so they're going to almost feel like too, well, I mean, I might as well speak out too, so it'll definitely be interesting, but I definitely appreciate, that commentary. I definitely think it's, worth discussing 100%. Now, one thing, speaking of the NFL, there was one thing that we, we're kind of keeping our eyes on, just some of the free agency that's been going on. We've been hearing a lot of talk regarding running backs and just kind of, their value in the NFL. And I think a part of that has to do with the fact that there are not a lot, but there are some, quarterbacks who are dual threat now. And you kind of see that a little more too, where they're able to use their legs. So the biggest developments as of really the last couple of days and even the last hour. So of course, Derrick Henry, he's going to the Baltimore Ravens. He signed a 2-year deal with them. But as of the last hour, Calvin Ridley, he's going to the Tennessee Titans. And so he signed a 4-year deal with them. And then Josh Jacobs is going to the Green Bay Packers on a 4-year deal. So I think that's awesome. I want to get y'all's takes on that. What do y'all, and I'll start with you, Dan, on this one. How do you feel about these moves? Who do you think out of these three has maybe the most to gain going to, their new destinations?
Most definitely Derrick Henry. That's an absolute great fit for him.
Yeah.
You got a dual threat quarterback. They're going to benefit from each other. Having Lamar Jackson will allow Derrick Henry to have more open running lanes. That's what they have with a dual threat quarterback. So without a doubt, Baltimore has really put themselves into a Super Bowl contention with that move.
Agreed. And then Hannah, do you also feel like Derrick will make the biggest impact, or would you say someone else?
Sure. And I mean, I think one that I was kind of the most about was Josh Jacobs, right? Because I mean, you look at who the Raiders just hired as their running back coach, Cardell Williams, kind of like Williams out of Auburn. And I was really excited to see the two of them work together, because you look at the impact that Josh Jacobs has had for the Raiders. Is he going to have the Packers? Maybe not. I mean, you have to look at the offensive line that he was running through there in Las Vegas. I like to call them the Oakland Raiders. I'm old school, okay?
Yeah.
I just, if they move cities, they need to change names. They don't need to be the same team. But anyway, yeah, I agree. I think Derrick Henry to the Ravens is going to be impressive. But I honestly think my gut says Calvin Ridley to the Titans, because I think for Tennessee, they have always had one missing piece, right? They've had a good running back group. Have they had a great wide receiver group at the same time? Very seldomly. When they've had a great wide receiver and running back group, they haven't had a great quarterback. So I think bringing Calvin Ridley in to be that type of receiver that can go deep and short, give them some out routes, that's kind of what they missed the last couple of seasons. So I'm excited, but I agree. I think when you look at it on pen and paper and you look at it statistically, I think Derrick Henry for the Ravens is probably going to put them up for Super Bowl next season. So I'm excited to see what they do. But I will say, Mac Jones leaving the Patriots is going to be the best thing that ever happened to that kid, because I think he got put into a broken system. I think he got put into a situation where he was micromanaged, and, he's a guy that needs a lot of, I think, emotional support. And Saban and Bill O'Brien, the guys he worked under at Alabama did that well, but I think him going to Jacksonville may be the start of his next shot in his career.
Agreed. I definitely agree. And shout out to Mac Jones as well. So I would echo the same sentiment regarding Derrick Henry. I think that I think he's going to be one of those instant impact players. He's going to be kind of like that missing key that the Ravens probably needed all along. you look at Calvin Ridley and just kind of go back to when Derrick Henry and AJ Brown were playing with, the Titans, and I think Tannehill was the quarterback. When I would watch their games, it always seemed like there was something that was missing, something that was off. Sometimes a lack of consistency with Tannehill. Sometimes the defense wasn't consistent. So I feel like with Calvin Ridley, he's an elite player. I feel like he's probably more hungry than ever. I do believe that I think he's going to have a breakout year. I just don't know if collectively as a team, if the Titans can really go where they need to go with just him. I think they're going to have to do pretty well when it comes to the draft and just getting strategic players on their team before they, see some big improvement. But two other players that I wanted to mention, not necessarily regarding just, transfers and things like that, but Bo Scarborough. I know we mentioned it, last night on the Bama Standard and Final Whistle, but he has officially retired and he's also engaged now. So we definitely want to give him a big shout out and wish him the best of luck. Congratulations. But then also Landon Dickerson, of course, who's with the Eagles. Now, he has become the highest paid offensive guard in NFL history. So I wanted to mention that too, because that's a huge mark to make. I know a lot of times people just kind of, sometimes overlook the offensive line at times. You don't really see them making a whole lot of money as frequently as you do some of the other position groups. So shout out to Landon. Now, I definitely want to, and I see a comment, and thank you, Ty, for the super chat. Shout out to you because we see you here every week. Do y'all feel like Henry waited too late since he's a running back? He spent 8 years with Tennessee. Yeah, I honestly, I don't understand because when you look at how the valuation of running backs has decreased, it's almost as if I want to touch on Jace McClellan later in the show, but it makes you wonder, all these different guys, it's almost like there's no place for some of them to go. I mean, you would almost have to be the top level running back and consistently be that year after year for them to even see that continuous value in you. Dan, what do you think about that?
Anytime you can get into your third contract as a running back, that's outstanding, So waiting too late. I don't know. He loved Tennessee. Tennessee loved him, So and to get into the third contract and an obvious Super Bowl contender, it couldn't have worked out better for him. I'm glad, he's in Baltimore and not Dallas. Dallas would have been great for him as far as legacy and but they got too much money tied up in that. So it's a great fit for him. I'm really liking this move for Derrick Henry.
Agree. Hannah, what do you think? You think it's maybe a little late?
No, I think he has so much more left. And, I'll say this about him. I think he was waiting for the perfect, like I said earlier, the perfect dynamic trio of quarterbacks, running back, wide receivers. And I think they just never got there. And I think Derrick Henry is probably one of the most loyal players you'll ever see in the NFL. I mean, he is true Tennessee Titans. But I agree with what Dan said. I mean, I think when you look at this opportunity, you look at who they have, playing with someone like, with the Ravens, I mean, like I said, like you said earlier, it's going to be a instant impact. But I think when you look at what he's looking at, maybe he's like, I've got maybe 4 or 5 more seasons. I think give it 1 or 2 seasons, he's going to have a Super Bowl ring. And that's what he went out there for. So I think for him, it couldn't have been, like I said, Dan said, it couldn't have been any better. But I'm excited because I think Derrick Henry's been underutilized and he has not performed as well the last couple of seasons because of who he has in the supporting roles. And I think for him, we're going to see the Derrick Henry we saw 3-4 years ago, breaking record week after week after week.
Right. I agree. Well, all the best wishes to our guys, every one of them, to be honest. I mean, I love to see them go out there and just do what they love and succeed in it. Now, before we move on to our one of our hot topics tonight, of course, Caleb Odom, I definitely want to give a shout out to Whitwell Sports. Now, before we progress, we know that, A-Day is coming up. Of course, that's why the spring camp is kicked off. But you need to make sure you get a title towel. Now, you don't want to be in the Bryant-Denny Stadium for A-Day without your title towel. So be sure to visit whitwellsports.com and use our exclusive discount standard so that you can get a discount. We're not going to say what that percentage is, but be sure to go ahead and order yours today so that you get it in time for A-Day. Now, they have announced, of course, that A-Day is on the 13th of April, but they also announced this week that it's going to be aired on ESPN. So I think that's awesome. Of course, our naysayers and our haters, they're going to be watching anyway. It doesn't matter where it's aired. I mean, they're going to watch anyway, but we thought that we, just kind of have it where, y'all can easily tune in since y'all be tuning in anyway. So anyway, let's pivot a little bit to who I believe is going to be one of the best wide receivers to ever come through Alabama, Caleb Odom. he's been touted as one of the best, but we do have a video that we want to queue up really quickly. It's some commentary from Nick Sheridan. Let's go ahead and get that kicked off.
I think with Caleb, we're just trying to put him in a position to be successful early on in his career. He's a big kid. He's very athletic. He's very explosive. He's got a great frame. How his body grows and what he turns into being. He's 20, 21, 22 years old. I think time will tell. He certainly runs plenty good enough to play wide receiver. He runs very well. He's a big target. Just try to put him in a position early on. Try not to run into 275-pound people. Put him in a position so he can have success. I think there's so much versatility in our offense. There's so much interpositional responsibilities where tight ends and wide receivers or running backs, everyone's being taught conceptually what we're trying to do. And so there's good teaching and learning occurring there, and just trying to utilize his strengths, put him in a position to be successful. He's been great. He comes from a great program. He's accustomed to playing football at a high level. And so the moment hasn't been too big with him. He's fit right in. Obviously, we had a chance to watch some bowl prep when we first got here. There were moments of him competing at a high level against really good competition.
And so, and for anyone who just tuned in, so this commentary is regarding Caleb Odom. He was a tight end, but he's going to be playing as a wide receiver at Alabama, coming in with the 2024 class. Now, I would give him 5 stars any day. Forget what you see on websites. None of that stuff matters. This is a 5-star guy. He's elite. He's huge. He's really the complete package. Now, he's coming out of Carrollton, Georgia. And that's, he played tight end at Carrollton High, and he was recruited as a tight end. But within the last few days, they're like, nah, he needs to be wide receiver. We heard Kendrick Law echo the same sentiment this week. And who we just saw in that video is our new offensive coordinator, Nick Sheridan. Now, when I talk about Caleb Odom, it just kind of makes me think about not just him, but what we have coming in. And, you have to give kudos to our new coaching staff. We have Ryan Williams coming in as well with the 2024 class. And so I think to have that elite duo and not even just forgetting about, the Kobe Prentice of the world, Jalen Hill, all these guys that we have that are still there, Kendrick Law. I mean, I think we're going to see something that we haven't seen in quite some time. And I believe that we have the coaches to do that. I think Nick Sheridan, he talks about Caleb Odom's capacity. I think that's one thing that, to me, a good coach looks at. And he actually said something in that video that I like to speak on is, when it comes to good leadership at a coaching level, you need to be paying attention to not just the weaknesses and the strengths, but you need to understand how to best utilize their strengths and weaknesses. And that's something that we just heard Nick Sheridan say. So I think that, that speaks volumes. Even Jamarcus Shepard, he said that he loves what he's seeing from Caleb. I think it's his size. Caleb is 6'5", over 200 pounds. When you see this guy, I mean, he can create separation literally like a wide receiver, especially considering that he's playing in the SEC now. He has great hands. He's fast. DBs literally have a hard time covering him. And I feel like his awareness, knowing where his feet are at all times, this guy is on a whole different level. So I believe that we struck gold for sure. I think that this is why when we saw that press conference with Jamarcus Shepard, he was so fired up. And I think that, these coaches like Ryan Grubb, you go wherever you want to go. But I think that he really missed out on what we have. And that's fine, because we only want the ones at Alabama who really wants to be there. So I want to start with you, Hannah. How do you feel? What do you think about Caleb Odom? I mean, this guy, he's like one of those ones who kind of creep up on you. Maybe he's kind of the more quiet type, but he's the type that the one thing that you can't say about him is that he's not hardworking. This guy is going to get the job done. What do you think about him? And what do you think about what the coaches said?
Well, first thing for me is loyalty. I mean, he stuck around. He obviously was there before Saban retired, and then has stuck around for, having a new head coach and now his second new offensive coordinator. I'm excited. I think the kid is talented, like you said, but I'll say this, probably the most reactive comment I've seen from Alabama fans on social media is there's too many good wide receivers. Okay, let's time out. Do y'all not remember when we had Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle all on the field at the same time, and we were unstoppable? So please let's remember that when you have several good wide receivers, it helps us. That's one reason why the last couple of years we've struggled, because we've maybe had one or two consistently good wide receivers. When you have a quarterback like maybe Jalen Milroe, so to speak, I think he'll be our starter, but what do I know? I'm just kidding. But when you have wide receivers that Jalen Milroe can throw to more than just one or two, that's going to make us better. So I just wanted to get that little fiery comment out there, because I've seen that probably 15 or 20 times since Caleb Odom's been announced that he's now going to be a wide receiver. I think it's amazing. And we talked before the show about some of the Alabama players that have changed positions. I mean, Eddie Jackson, a guy who had to trust the Nick Saban process, and look at him now. So, I mean, you look at these guys, and for me, Caleb Odom is a guy that is loyal, like you said, hardworking, but I also think determined. Because I think when you look at a guy who came in for Rose Bowl prep, saw Saban retire, and now is under DeBoer, he's excited, and it shows that he already trusts the coaching staff, and that enough to me is to say, roll Tide, roll.
Exactly. I mean, you said it all. And when you mentioned the different guys that we had, the different wide receivers that we had at one time, and then you look at, I think it was the 2021 national championship when we lost to Georgia. Well, remember in the SEC championship, John Mechie got injured, and then Jamison Williams got injured in the national. And I remember one of the things that Coach Saban said in the press conference was essentially, you never want to just rely on a couple of guys, because that's when they put Ajayi Hall in there, and he couldn't do anything, and so you don't want to rely on just a couple of guys, I mean, that's something that I think that we're seeing now, just that understanding of the importance of having that depth at the different position groups. And so, Dan, how do you feel about, I mean, I feel like I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. How do you feel about Caleb Odom? What do you think about him being a wide receiver? And what do you think about the comments that Nick Sheridan made about him?
I'm not surprised at all. One interesting comment is, which was a question for me, was, one comment he made was he runs well enough. So if he can do that, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? But his at Carrollton High, he was a wide receiver. That's how they utilize him, just like Miller Forrestal before he came to Bama and become a tight end. They used him. And another thing he mentioned was interpositional responsibilities. It's similar. We can use him as a flex tight end. The goal, I think the point he was trying to get across was we want to get him off of blocking the 275-pound edges, get him off, guys like that, put him out, let him block receivers on the edge, DBs, safeties, block safeties, cornerbacks on the edge, so it's a great opportunity for him, and I think it's a move that'll pay out for him in the long run.
I agree with you and Hannah on that. And speaking of which, because that kind of carries us into our next topic when we talk about, the coaches and just what they've said in the past few days, Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard. I know that we're focusing a lot on offense, but I think that it's definitely, it's justified. So when we look at what the coaches are saying, look at Nick Sheridan, for example. Another thing that he said about Caleb Odom is that, he's one of those guys who are going to be successful early on in his career. And to me, when I hear that, that sounds like, look, we're on from a coaching perspective, we're going to try to get him out there as early as possible. He said that, we're trying to think about, when he gets a little older, 20, 21, 22, I mean, really the sky is the limit, as far as how much more he grows, I mean, I think that he has great things ahead of him. Willie Beeman, Caleb Odom has very impressive hands. He'll be a matchup nightmare on fades and jump balls. Looks like he can keep the chains moving too. Agreed. I mean, when you go and look at his high school film, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, I'm sure Georgia, they probably like, well, I mean, we might as well go ahead and just bow down to them. I mean, we definitely not rolling up in Tuscaloosa thinking we're going to win something, but we'll keep that at bay for right now. So another thing that I wanted to hit on, though, is just, let's see, we have Van Edwards as well. I need to holler at the coach and see if I can get into that D-line rotation. I think I still have a few plays in me. Okay, well, look, they may be open. I don't know. They may be open. We definitely, we can use all the help we can get because we're definitely winning that natty this year. That's all I got to say. Now, we did hear Jamarcus Shepard. He had a press conference this week. And one thing that he mentioned, he kept saying, he was asked different questions. And he kept saying, he's like, it's Alabama. I mean, period. That's really all you have to say. Jamarcus Shepard mentioned that although he's from Indiana, he has family from Uniontown, Alabama. And so in that regard, he's like, okay, well, I've been to Tuscaloosa before. I know the atmosphere. I know what's expected. And I think that, one thing that he said that stood out to me and that us on this network, we've been talking about since Coach Saban retired is that, you have a collection of people from Alabama and the coaching staff from Washington and some of the transfers who both have a chip on their shoulder regarding, how our season ended last year. So you put that together and you best believe we coming for that natty. So I think that just some of that rhetoric that we're hearing from, Jamarcus Shepard, like I just think it gets me amped up all over again. But another thing that he mentioned, he doesn't like the term receiver. And he said that he that when people say receiver, it's kind of taken as, oh, that player is soft. And so he wants our wide receivers and our tight ends to be called takers because that's more aggressive. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see that aggression that, our receivers, bring to the field. So just wanted to mention that in terms of the coaches. But while we're still talking about the coaches, because we have to give them a shout out, and I want to get y'all's takes on this in a second. So these coaches, all of them, they've done such an excellent job on the recruiting trail. And we have to shout out Coach DeBoer. We have to shout out all of them, because one thing that a lot of us were saying, well, not really me, but, from some of the other channels and some of the other, commentators, we were talking about Coach DeBoer, and about his ability to recruit in the South, particularly in Alabama, and how it's so important. And so one thing that I noticed is that, they're all over the place. This past weekend, we had, I think, about 70 recruits in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We have guys who already committed, guys who literally decommitted and are thinking about recommitting. When I say they're on a different level, like they're taking recruiting to the next level. So 2 guys in particular who recruited or who committed in the past few days, and I want to get y'all's opinion on them. One guy, he's an athlete, Zymir Smith. Now, he's from Maryland. He's on y'all have to look at his film if you haven't already. He can actually play wide receiver, and he can be a DB. He's I think he's a great replacement for Jameer Grimsley, who was the other athlete that we had in the 2025 class that decommitted when Coach Saban retired. But we also had another guy that committed. He's a wide receiver, Derrick Smith. Now he's out of Selma, Alabama. He's also with the 2025 class, and he initially showed a lot of interest in Auburn. I don't think he was a guy that we were really targeting per se. He visited Auburn a lot, even Florida State, but then he committed to Alabama this week. So I want to get y'all's opinions on this, especially with Derrick being the 4th in-state commit that we've had for the 2025 class. So I'll start with you, Hannah. How do you feel about these 2 commits?
I'm excited. And I'll say this. I think a couple of things about this that I love is how much players are recruiting other players, and I think with the power of social media, with the power of, cell phones, communication. I don't think I've seen a class recruit as much as I've seen these guys this year. Right now that Ryan Williams has recommitted to Alabama, the fact that he has conversations with these guys, he's getting them here. And I think for me, I think Alabama is blessed because the coach that they hired made it to the national championship game. I think if we're being honest, if Alabama would have hired a coach from Iowa State or, whatever, that maybe made it top 25, we'd be having a completely different discussion. But Kalen DeBoer has shown that regardless of where he's at, he's successful. And so that's the first thing that helped. And then the second thing is the players. But the third thing is that we've talked about it before, but the guys who stayed from Saban to DeBoer and had that mentality, had that we're playing for the back of the jersey, we're playing for Alabama, we're playing, for the Crimson Tide, they've continued to have that legacy and process in mind. And I think when you have that, when you have those 3 ingredients, it's moi, right? Like it's amazing. It's not able to be compared to other programs. And I think for Alabama, that's what's helped. These 2 guys, I'm super excited for, because I think we're seeing different types of recruits come to Alabama than we haven't before. Having a guy that can play both sides of the ball, roll tide. Like, let's see where he fits. Maybe it's going to be opposite. Maybe we bring in a wide receiver, like, hey, you're actually better for tight end, right? The fact that we have the talent to do so, and 2, the coach is smart enough to do so, I'm here for it. And I'm very excited to see what happens.
Agreed.
I don't know why I'm so long-winded tonight. Maybe I'm making up for last week. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. I think the viewers appreciate, the context. Maybe sometimes they don't see what we see,
Sure.
And so that us providing that context and kind of giving them something to simmer on a little bit, I think it helps them in the live chat. So I definitely think you should continue with that. And then, Dan, how do you feel like this job that our coaches, specifically Coach DeBoer, Courtney Morgan, all of them, what they're doing as far as, just the recruiting and the 2 guys that we got this week, Zamir and then also Derrick. How do you feel? And then how do you feel about Derrick being and we only have 5 commits for the 2025 class so far. 4 of the 5 are from the state of Alabama. So how do you feel about that? Would you give them kudos so far, the coaches?
Definitely. And just think, they are ahead of Coach Saban's when it comes to recruiting, because usually around this time under Coach Saban, we be sitting at 1 recruit, So, the thing of the job, this guy came in had to re-recruit the players that was, on the team. Number one, he had to assemble a staff. He had to cancel his first junior day. He had to cancel that because he didn't have his staff in place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said 70 recruits. No, you're underselling this guy. This guy had over 100 recruits on campus. And this just the first week of spring practice.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you, a lot of eyes, on a lot of players, and great opportunity to evaluate players. And I'm going to talk about the two commits that we got. Zamir Smith, I'm telling you, man, if we had waited 2 or 3 more weeks, he was going to commit to Georgia or Texas. They really wanted this guy.
Exactly.
So Coach DeBoer, he ain't playing around. You know what I'm saying? You look at the offer list. Derrick Smith, he it depends on who you ask. He's the best player in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
He went before Ryan Williams reclassified. He was the number 2 receiver. Then he got graded as a safety defensive back. And he was number 2 behind Naeem Offord out of Parker Birmingham. That just shows you what the type of athlete he is. I think Bama likes him as a safety, defensive back, but his athletic ability jumps off the chart. He was probably the most successful, productive high school player, in the country last year. I had his numbers somewhere, but this guy had over 1,000 yards receiving. He had 1,000 yards rushing. I'm sorry. He had I think he had his freshman sophomore year. He had 21 interceptions combined. He had 11 sacks on defense last year. This guy's outstanding. I expect him and Zamir Smith, both to rise up majorly in the rankings when the next rankings come out. But those are 2 big gets. They're both in the athlete category. That's what Coach DeBoer and the staff they're targeting early. So it's going to pay off now, and we still going to be hitting on the area. We got another guy committing on the 20th. So I expect that another athlete we like is either DB or safety. His name slips my mind, but yeah, I expect the offensive line room, the board, to shuffle around after A-Day. We're getting a lot of guys on campus. This is week 1 win, week 2 of spring practice. I'm talking about, man, I buckle up. That's all I can say. Big things are coming.
Right. And really quickly, which one? Who wants to get Chris? I see that. And for those who are new here, this is a. I would say this is a case of arrested development. You have someone, he has a photo of Cam Newton when he played for Auburn in 2010. I guess maybe he could say that was their glory days. I mean, maybe not really. I don't know. He's delusional. Who wants to get him? I mean, I'm all for it, but I can.
I'll just quote Nick Saban when Nick Saban says, "Mediocre people hate high achievers, and high achievers hate mediocre people." So,
and that's
when you look at what they've done, I mean, there's a reason he hasn't changed his profile picture in 2010 because they hadn't done a single thing since then. But also, don't just leave. Just
do they have a pro day? Do y'all know? Do they have a pro day?
No, they have at Auburn. I think they have a semi-pro day.
Look,
that's what they call it.
Well, the good news is there's no shortage in toilet paper because they haven't had a reason to roll recently.
They haven't because they get rolled over.
They actually have a cow auction. That's the pro day.
Oh.
I mean, it's really sad. You almost want to feel bad for him. But y'all, this is a guy. He's here every Wednesday. He's tuned in. To be honest, we appreciate that support because we know that haters are truly, supporters. But, if you're still thinking the way that you're thinking, you're actually delusional. And like I said, it's arrested development. You need help. Now, and I see another comment from Jeremy Sanders, Duke Johnson going to be the next commit. Yeah, Duke Johnson. And speaking of which, as we're talking about the commits and we're talking about all these guys who were in Tuscaloosa this past weekend, there were a few of them who I believe that we should go after. Now, I know that, maybe 1 or 2 is going to be kind Will they really come? I don't know. But one guy in particular, he's a 5-star quarterback, Julian Lewis. Now, I mentioned him because he goes to Carrollton, same school that Caleb Odom attended. And he did commit to USC last year before the season started. So, will he come to Alabama? I don't really know. But he was in T-Town this past weekend. So I think, just that connection. I think it always helps when quarterbacks have some form of relationship or former relationship with players. And the fact that, he and Caleb Odom went to the same school, I think that, we'll see what happens. But there's another 5-star. He's a cornerback, Naeem Alford from Birmingham, Alabama, another in-state guy. So he had actually verbally committed to Ohio State. And it's interesting because it was around the same time that Coach Saban announced his retirement. And so with him being an in-state guy and just kind of seeing like some of the teams that, he visited, some of the ones that he didn't, and the fact that he would commit to Ohio State, it made me wonder a little bit if maybe he was kind of following, like Caleb Downs. I don't know what was going on there, but he was in T-Town this past weekend, another in-state guy. We have 2 other ones that I think that we really should go after. Now, one in particular, I was a little on the fence with him because he was committed to Alabama and he decommitted when Coach Saban retired. He's a 5-star edge, Zion Grady out of Enterprise, Alabama. I say Zion because he's really good. He's really elite. And I think that we do need, it wouldn't hurt to get more edge rushers, and so I think that maybe we could get him to recommit. I think he was in Tuscaloosa for a reason. So we'll see what happens there. But then there was a 4-star defensive lineman, Jordan Crawford out of Birmingham. Now he's currently committed to Auburn. And so the delusional guy who was just, on our screen, we know how Auburn is used to taking L's. So that's why, Ryan Williams, he even canceled his trip. He didn't want to go. Don't nobody want to go to Auburn. No one even wants to drive through Auburn. So there's a chance that Jordan may, come to where the winners are made. I mean, we say where legends are made for a reason. So it's what it is. Now, really quickly, and I want to get y'all's opinions. There are 2. So between now and the end of next week, we have more recruits coming into town. I think one of you touched on that. And there are 2 in particular that I think that we need to put a lot of emphasis on. There's a 5-star cornerback, Dijon Lee Jr. Now, this guy's out of California, and he's pretty awesome. He's only visited a few West Coast teams. But I think that, when you consider Damani Jackson, who transferred from USC to Alabama, and just kind of consider the changes that their program is going through, I wouldn't scratch him off my list. I mean, he's coming to Tuscaloosa. So I would definitely, kind of push a little heavily on him. But then there's a 4-star running back, Deer out of Mississippi. Now, he could potentially stay in state. I don't know. But I think when you consider, he's a part of the 2025 class, picture him coming in with Anthony Rogers, Turbo, who's out of Montgomery, Alabama. Shout out to Montgomery. I just think that it could be a beautiful thing. We'll see what happens there. But I want to ask both of you, and I'll start with you, Dan, any of the names that I mentioned that you're, hopeful that we're able to get, to commit within the next couple of weeks, or any guys that I didn't name?
Well, one in particular, Juju Lewis. Mm-hmm. What do you think Bama will ever be able to flip a commit from a quarterback commit from USC? I don't think that's ever happened in the last 3-4 years. I don't think. Am I wrong? A quarterback that went on to win the Heisman. I forgot where he flipped from, but it's gonna happen.
We'll see. I mean, he was in Tuscaloosa, so to me that shows that he's not 100% on committed to USC.
What I was getting at, we did the same thing with Bryce Young. They're gonna kick us out of South California. But I like it. Proximity to home. That's the advantage we had. He had teammates. Committed. A couple of teammates committed already. So. I'm really liking that. Then, another one, I don't know if you mentioned him, Javian Hilson, former Alabama commit, we had on campus. He decommitted, I think, the same day Nick Saban announced his retirement. And a couple of days later, flipped to Florida State, but we got him back in the fold. So, hey, Coach DeBoer, the job he's doing, re-recruiting guys, I wouldn't put it past him. I like what he's doing. We're gonna have our pick of the litter of players. Players are gonna be lining up. We're gonna have to make some tough decisions later on as far as when the class starts filling up. Mm-hmm. Because now's the time. The iron is hot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's. I mean, this is like I said. This is 2 weeks in. Yeah. I'm going to be a busy man in the next couple of months, what I'm saying, up until signing day. So Hey, like I said, buckle up, y'all. I'm talking about it's good times ahead, exciting times.
Yep. And that's why, last week, Dan, we were talking about the difference between, reacting and responding. And some of the guys who left Alabama, like we said, we want the people there that wants to be there. And even some of these commits who chose to remain committed. At the end of the day, I think that when you look at what DeBoer and staff are doing in Tuscaloosa, it's going to be something for the books, and I think with the amount of time that we have before the season starts, like it's just, all it's going to do is just tighten that bond amongst the players. So I'm definitely excited. Hannah, what do you think about these guys who are coming in? Or is there anyone who's on your watch list or anyone that I didn't mention?
No, I think you'll hit the nail on the head. I'm just over here a little feisty with Chris. He's
still running his mouth. That's all they can do because they have nothing to talk. And I'm not reading that. Like, I mean, he just, I would just
take a moment. Like, can we please just take a moment? I don't know of any other people besides Michigan and Auburn that find satisfaction and joy spending their time watching a show that's about the other football program and just keep talking smack. I'm like, I don't understand. I literally barely have enough time in the day to drink enough water and, do my life, much less waste time going to another program bashing them. Okay, first off, Chris, you're insane. Secondly, your quarterback there in the picture literally stole out and stole a national championship ring. Thirdly, you haven't been good since then. And you're talking about Peyton Thorne winning the Heisman. Okay. Peyton Thorne couldn't throw a ball if it was the wide receiver had 17-foot tall hands and it was a 2-yard pass. I mean, literally, did you not watch him? I mean, I can't even.
Yeah, it's just delusion. I mean, people like that, it's sad because it's like, I'm assuming this is a grown man,
honestly, I don't even know. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, you will hope that it's not, because it's definitely alarming, but it's just like, I would never with my time spend my time going on another, like, I don't even have the desire. I don't want to hear y'all talk about Georgia or anyone else, and Georgia fans be in our chat too, but we come for them too, because like, if you want to be entertained, this is the right place.
At least they've got some game. At least they've beaten us. At least they have something to talk smack about. I mean, what's Auburn got to talk smack about?
Auburn has nothing to say, because even in 2013, y'all still lost the Natty. I mean, it's just it's sad. It's really sad. But maybe they're just living in their little glory day. They can't say glory days, so it's really pathetic. But
do you remember that old show Green Acres? You ever watch that show?
Yes.
That's what I think of Auburn fans. Like, that's literally the epitome of Auburn fans. Green Acres. That, or what's that talking donkey show? The what?
The original house.
Yes.
We first moved into it.
Okay,
Yes.
Really quickly, y'all, because I don't want to deviate too much. I mean, he's that guy. He's going to run his mouth. The good thing is that, he just increases the views. So it's whatever. We appreciate the support. He has nothing better to do, because at the end of the day, we are the standard. We're the best to ever do it. We've had the best, coaches of all time. Yeah. So, but anyway, let's move forward. So we did hear some commentary from some of our players as well. Some of our players have spoken out just regarding some of the practices that they've had and even about each other. So I wanted to kind of touch on that as well. So I did hear Justice Hayes, actually, he made a comment about just that 1-2 punch between himself and Jam Miller. And he basically said that it's time for them to take over. He said regarding Jalen Milroe, that Jalen Milroe, he leads all the time. He literally leads by example, and that they push each other. And so I just think to hear some of the players, talk about each other, even Jalen Milroe, he spoke out. He said, at the end of the day, we're going to have, and it was more so regarding the different coach changes and all of that. And so he said, at the end of the day, we were going to have spring ball anyway, regardless of who the coach was going to be. So his sentiment is that he's excited to have Nick Sheridan as the OC. He said that, he's been working pretty closely with Coach DeBoer and Nick Sheridan to essentially make sure that he can kind of be a sponge, just soak in all the information that he can. And so that's a leader. That's what leaders do. And so I wasn't surprised to hear Milroe say that. But a couple of things that I wanted to mention, and I want to get y'all's takes on this as well. Kendrick Law. So this is a guy, he's by far one of my favorite receivers. I like his attitude. I like his demeanor. I like his, you could tell that he's a hard worker. You could tell that he's dedicated and he's loyal to the game. Well, he was being asked about Caleb Odom, because that's when it was first released that he was going to be lining up as a wide receiver receiver. And Kendrick Law, he said, he's like, well, Caleb Odom, he is a wide receiver, not a tight end. He's the biggest receiver we've had. He's the most aggressive guy. He's really aggressive at the line. And he actually compared Caleb Odom to George Pickens, which was the guy who played for, UGA just a couple years ago. So essentially, Kendrick Law was saying, the standard is still the standard, even with Coach Saban being gone. We just put new people in the positions. And so what do y'all think about that? I mean, I think that it speaks volumes to the mentality of the guys who chose to stay, because they could have left too. Kendrick Law, he had just gotten there maybe just a couple years ago, so a lot of these guys, they could have left too. But I want to get y'all's takes on this. Dan, I'll start with you. How do you feel about what, some of our players are saying, whether it's Justice Haynes or Jalen Milroe or Kendrick Law? How do you feel about their sentiments?
I'm loving it. That they understand that the University of Alabama it's a way of life.
Yeah.
It's bigger than any one coach, player. You commit to Alabama, you commit to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
You commit to a standard. You know what I'm saying? And the ones that stayed, those are the players that's about the standard. So, I expect a great season, this year, because of that. And what Coach DeBoer and staff is bringing, they're just bringing the juice. They're just recharging the Lamborghini.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they're doing. They're juicing it up. So, hey, I'm expecting big things, because we have several leaders and we don't have any blinking lights, that Coach Saban we're talking about getting rid of. You don't hear Coach DeBoer talking about blinking lights right now. You know what I'm saying? And we don't seem to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is amazing about these young men that we have.
So you think we need to get Coach DeBoer a shirt that says "Got that juice"?
Got that juice.
He got that juice. He got that juice. Okay. I like that. And then Hannah, how do you feel about what our players are saying? I mean, do you think that this is it's showcasing some positivity down the road towards that natty, or what do you think?
Sure. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think this team is going to be unique for many reasons, right? But I think the biggest thing is we're going to see, and let me back up. I don't know if y'all saw the article that Chris Lowe wrote about Nick Saban and his retirement, right? ESPN article. One of the things that stuck out with me was the attitude of the players when we lost the Rose Bowl, when they said they were throwing helmets down, when 60 to 70% of the players were talking about money when they returned. Mm-hmm. I like to think that the 40% that didn't ask that question are the ones we still have on the team. Because for me, we've got to play for the right reasons. Number two, that's not Alabama. Like, you have to win with class and lose with humility. And I think we're going to see this team come together, and we're going to see a group of guys play with a chip on their shoulder, with determination to prove that, hey, Saban's gone. And I'm going to say this too, and this may ruffle a few feathers, but I'm excited because we're going to see a team prove that Alabama football can be Alabama football with or without Nick Saban. And I love the man. Obviously, Nick Saban's the greatest football coach of all time, but Alabama has to still be Alabama without him. And I think we've seen Greg Byrne put Alabama in a place where they're going to have Kalen DeBoer, and they're going to have players that are willing to play for the right reason, with passion, with grit. And I'm going to be honest with you, we're just getting started. I think we're going to see the best Alabama football in 2 to 3 seasons. These guys here are going to be the old guys that we talk about in 30 or 40 years. And these are the guys that are going to lead the way for more championships to come. So I'm super excited, but I haven't been this excited for probably a football season since probably 2015, 2016. And I'm excited for this season.
Yeah. It's definitely been a while, to be honest. I mean, and it's sad to say that, right? I think shout out to Van. Shout out to everyone in the comments. Like we said, we always appreciate those in the live chat. Even, the Alabama haters. Jeremy Sanders, I think it's possible Bama could make a run at the Natty this season. I think it's more than possible. I think one of the biggest threats to your opponent, to the opposition, is when you not only figure out your identity, but you have everything that you need to succeed. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're literally rebuilding the system from the ground up. And when we were the laughing stock and everyone couldn't keep our names out their mouths when Coach Saban retired, and, we literally had somewhat of an exodus, look at how the tables are about to turn. I mean, we're going to be the place where guys are they really want to come to. It speaks volumes that you have a Damani Jackson who left USC, and he could have actually transferred somewhere else, but he decided to continue to come to Alabama regardless. You think about Keon Sabb, the guy from Michigan, the DB, who they literally just so-called won the national championship, whatever. But the fact that he's come to Alabama, I just think that I think a lot of times people look at things from more like a surface level, and they don't really think about like what this really means. Like to me, it speaks volumes, and I think that we have great things ahead of us. I'm sure that from what Steven said last week on our episode, what he saw at that practice, he had us on fire and we weren't there. So I think that speaks volumes to just that camaraderie, in the locker room, and just how the guys are meshing well with each other. Now, we are coming up on time. I definitely wanted to quickly give a shout out to our men's basketball team, though, because the SEC tournament has kicked off today in Nashville, Tennessee. And our guys are going to be playing this Friday night. So we don't know who they're going to be playing yet, whether it's Florida, Georgia, or Missouri. But I definitely want to say roll tide to our basketball team, for making it to the tournament. They definitely deserve it. And then shout out to our women's swimming team. They're going to be competing in the women's NCAA championships, which kicks off 1 week from today. So I really wanted to say that because I think a lot of times we spend so much energy on, our football team, and rightfully so, but, our other sports are doing just as well. So, and let's see. Okay. And really quickly, so we also have another show airing shortly after this, Teague's Take. It's hosted by JT and George Teague. It'll be right here on the Bama Standard Network, airing at 8:15 Central Standard Time, 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. And before we leave, let's share our social medias, any podcasts that we have, any other shows. And I'll start with you, Hannah. Anything that you want to share to the viewers?
Yes, I'm so excited. I can't announce this one yet. I think next week I'll be able to announce a new radio show that I'm going to be on. But I am super honored and humbled to be here with y'all. I love it. You can follow me. Just follow me on Twitter and Facebook right now. Obviously, you can follow me on Facebook, Hannah Stevens, or the UA Sign Girl. And then I keep calling it Twitter. I know it's X, but like I said before, I like sticking with the old school names. I still call them the Oakland Raiders because that was what they were my entire life. So at the UA Sign Girl, you can follow me on Twitter there. Thanks again for letting me be part of your show. I love it. And I look forward to this every single week. And one day I want to get a picture with us to where like we're doing like the Brady Bunch picture, like the Brady Bunch, like where we like pointing up and down. I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, we need to get Steven to do some clips for us, some intros or something. I definitely want to get that. Looks like Chris is still running his mouth. Sir, please go to somebody's Bible study on Wednesday nights, because you like I almost want to feel sorry for you. It's really sad. I mean, that's a pathetic way to live. You sit your big grown, on an Alabama YouTube show talking about Auburn. Out of all people, like I could see if you were talking about Georgia, maybe even Michigan, but Auburn.
Well, this is the only time Auburn team name would be mentioned on the screen because their spring game is not being televised. It's just them and Vanderbilt, their rival.
That's so sad. Y'all take L's all day and night, and y'all really want to be in somebody's conversation, please. Like it's an honor for us to be in y'all a raggedy stadium, beating y'all every single time. Like y'all just raggedy, just raggedy. Like I wouldn't even show my face, and then to have the audacity to wear a hoodie that says Auburn, like you're not embarrassed, but like they say, where there is no pride, there's no shame. So you can't expect anything less. Dan, do you have any? And shout out to Ty Alexander again. I love Wednesdays because of the show. Thank you. We appreciate your support. Everyone in the chat, appreciate your support. Van Edwards, fantastic show. Sishi, Hannah, and my brother Dan. Y'all bring it every week. I'm never disappointed. Killing the game. We appreciate it. Y'all bring it every week as well. Yeah. Y'all definitely, we appreciate the support. And then Dan, do you have any social media or any other shows that you want to support?
I definitely do. You can catch me on Twitter. I understand, I ruffled a few Georgia feathers this week with a quote that was on Twitter. At the Final Whistle Dan. You can catch me on Tuesday nights on this very same network, the Final Whistle. And on Wednesdays right here, y'all. I'm going to have to change my name to Crimson Dynasty Dan. That has a better ring to it. You know what I'm saying?
I think so.
Y'all. Hit that like and subscribe. I enjoy all y'all. Even you, Chris, man. I wouldn't have nothing else to talk about. Nobody else can troll if you didn't come in here every week. I appreciate it, man. I just hope you hit that like and subscribe button. Send us a super chat every now and then too, brother.
But you know what, though? This is why I love Alabama, because we come together as a collective to support those who are less fortunate. So, Ty Alexander, thank you for the financial support that we're going to send over to Chris. He needs it, whatever medication that is. And he's like, y'all gonna remember my name. Whatever medication it is that you need, just let us know. But we'll definitely, pass that $9.99 over to you. So thanks, Ty, for that. And you can find me on Instagram at beauty_of_intelligence. I don't really use X or anything else. To be honest,
need to.
I have an account, but I don't know. I just social media is just kind of like people do too much and they're not really doing a whole lot in real life, so it's just kind of annoying. Van Edwards, you can always spot a married Auburn fan. They got tobacco juice running down the sides of their truck door. Oh, that's disgusting. That is so gross. When is Steven coming back on? Look, we'll find that out for you. Steven, he's on a whole different level. And y'all know, so me and Steven, we have that type of bond where it's like we kind of feed off of each other. And I just love to get him amped up. I love it. And I hope that y'all went and saw the clips that we uploaded a few days ago. So we have 2 from last week's show. Y'all got to go and check that out, especially the insane reaction video. Awesome. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and end the show tonight. We have some hot topics for next week. And of course, as we lead up, Dan.
Yes, one more thing. Shout out to the national championship women's wheelchair basketball team.
Hey,
Yep.
shout out to them. That's awesome. See, and that's what we're talking about, Chris. See, it don't even have to be football. We just take W's across the board. Like y'all take is L's. Y'all can't even get recruits to be committed enough to come and visit y'all's campus. Like that's sad.
I'll add to that. I don't know if a lot of y'all know, but a lot of these women and men wheelchair basketball players for Alabama actually play Olympic sports for our country. So one of my friends, Mackenzie Solden, she's won gold in skiing. Because they hooked their wheelchair up, golf, tennis. I mean, we're winning Olympic gold medals. The Crimson side too, so they're very
awesome.
talented. You've never seen them play; they're
That's what the
incredible.
championship school is like, Chris.
He wouldn't know what that feels like. I mean, shout out to Raina Reyes last week. Of course, Mexico didn't beat Brazil, but United States, I think we either beat them or we still have to play them. But shout out to Raina. All right. Well, y'all have a blessed evening. We have hot topics coming next week. And of course, as we're leading up to A-Day, that's gonna be big. We're gonna have to have some hot guests here. So we won't say any names just yet, but be sure to tune in every Wednesday night, same time, same place. If you have any comments or any questions, be sure to leave it in the replay once this post. And we hope that y'all have a blessed evening, including the delusional fans that we see in the chat. Roll Tide Roll. Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye.
Roll Tide.